Just her.
Yeah.
Do I look okay?
Great. Do you feel okay?
I'm a bit nervous.
So yeah, just tell us a bit about yourself and what makes you special.
Well, ever since I was really small, I felt like I was different from other kids, other people. I remember vividly looking at myself and at my reflection and just like this is my form. It didn't seem right. Like I kind of had the feeling that I was sent here from somewhere else.
Oh, and why do you think you were sent?
I don't know. But I always felt very strongly that there was a reason. There must be. I mean, I've always been incredibly sensitive. Could always hear and see things that others couldn't.
What kind of things?
Visions, all kinds of visions. Faces, young, old, people I've never met, animals, flowers, beautiful landscapes.
Okay.
Like, sometimes they'd merge, like a face would turn into an animal, would turn into a flower. Like, it seemed like sometimes they told stories. And it could be scary, but most of the time it was just kind of cool.
Can you see any other things that others can't?
Yeah. Like if I really concentrate, I can see a kind of energy field around things. And I've always been able to notice beauty where others can't. That's something I really like about my gifts. I've always felt more attuned to my surroundings than most people. And you know, the first time I went for Reiki, the master took one look at me and she said, "You have Reiki." Right? And I was like, "No, it's my first time. I've never been before." And she was like, "No, you have Reiki. Like your third eye is already open." And then the second time, it was with a different lady. She said at one point she looked up and I was just bathed in golden light. Gold, obviously it signifies great healing potential. But I've always had a strong affinity with the mystical, you know? Like ever since I was a child, I was obsessed with mysteries and the occult, and I was convinced that science didn't have all the answers. There was so much more to the world and universe left to be discovered. And yeah, part of me kind of felt like I would be one of the people to help solve some of these mysteries. But I think I've always been headstrong, like even in past lives.
Oh yeah? You can remember past lives?
Bits, but there's one that I have more strong memories of. I did a guided meditation that is designed to help you remember them. I was a young woman living in eastern France in a little cottage. I can picture it so clearly. A lane and there was some trees, the cottage was here and we had a small patch of land. Me and my brother who had learning disabilities. Some of the local townspeople wanted our land and they accused me of cursing my brother and put me on trial for witchcraft. And I remember everything, being imprisoned in a dungeon in the town square to being up on the gallows waiting to be hung.
That's incredible. Do you have any psychic abilities?
I wouldn't say that's something I've honed. I think we really need to be careful with that kind of thing. But there have been a few incidences where I've been a bit spooky, as my mum always said.
Could you give us some examples?
Yeah, like I I knew my mum was pregnant with my youngest brother before she told me. She just found out that day and she was just walking in to tell me, and I just knew, and I just came out and said, "You're pregnant, aren't you?" And she was like, "Yeah." And yeah, like she just found out, so it's not like I overheard it or anything. Used to be able to sense when the phone was about to ring, that kind of thing, more when I was a kid. Sometimes if I've lost something, I just have to concentrate and I can literally see the thing in a place, and then we go and look and it's there. And yeah, sometimes it does seem like I can perceive the spirit realm, but again, that's not something I want to explore too much. I find it a little bit scary.
And how do you perceive the spirit realm?
From little things like seeing balls of light, sometimes like curtains of light sweeping across a room, shadows, hearing distant voices, to like hearing quite clear voices of people who have passed.
Tell us about that.
Well, there was this one time that I was incredibly distressed. I was depressed, and I just realised that my boyfriend at the time was a bad guy and he was in trouble. And I was alone in a foreign country and I was just at rock bottom. Through the noise of my distress, I heard clear as day my grand's voice telling me, "You'll be fine. He won't, but you will." And then this wave of calm washed over me. I hadn't felt calm like that for months, and it lasted, and it came true. I was fine, and he wasn't.
Wow, that's fascinating. Can you channel this ability?
Like I say, I don't really want to. I still find it a bit scary, but it does seem that I can converse quite often with what I believe to be a higher consciousness.
Like a guardian angel or God?
Something like that, yeah. It guides me, questions me, challenges me, and sometimes it will answer questions if I ask.
That sounds handy.
Yeah, it is. Things haven't always been perfect. Being so sensitive, obviously, means I'm also sensitive to negative energies. And I also heard that empaths, that's people who are so empathetic that they literally feel and experience the emotion that the person's going through. Empaths attract negative energy. So yeah, I guess it's like a yin-yang thing.
And have you attracted negative energies?
Friends, we have been sent here by a higher power to save all that is good. And it is clear now, there is only one way to do that. Please do like and share this video and subscribe. In the 70s, a lady called Nancy Ann Tappy coined the term Indigo Children. Nancy wasn't the first New Age enthusiast to talk about special people with unique otherworldly abilities. But as our Nance had synesthesia, she said that to her, children being born in the 70s overwhelmingly had indigo life colours, not to be confused with auras. This idea was later developed and popularised by Lee Carroll and Jan Tober in their book The Indigo Children. The new kids have arrived. Throughout this video, I will be using the term new kids to refer to a varied array of types of special people, because there's lots. Other conceptions include crystal, rainbow, opalescent, and star children. Depending on who you ask, these terms might describe different generations of evolution, or they might describe different traits which can be present in people of any generation. All agree, however, that this progression seems to have begun in the 70s. Some say that these special abilities are God-given. Others say that they're the next step in human evolution. And others believe that this is the result of extraterrestrial life or spirits from another dimension entering existing human bodies. What makes for a new kid can depend on who you ask, but there are a few things that unify these descriptors. The new kids are obviously different from their peers, more creative, more curious, more empathetic, seemingly wise beyond their years, perhaps possessing psychic or paranormal abilities, and who have a clear sense of purpose. And they do have a purpose. For the new kids, you see, we're sent here to save us all. I somewhat surprisingly only came across the concept of Indigo Children a couple of years ago, despite spending most of my 20s doing this. I've been thinking a lot recently about the supremacist and harmful attitudes which are pretty prevalent among modern new agey types, and I think this is an interesting place for my neurodivergent self to start. New kid YouTubers have up to, I think, 80k-ish subs, and r/Starseeds has around 8k members. So we're not talking a mass movement here, but I still think it's significant enough to discuss. This is because there is an entire industry out there making the hard cash monies off of probably neurodivergent people thinking they're aliens. And if you don't think that's interesting, then frankly, I don't think we can be friends anymore. In research for this video, I watched so many Indigo YouTubers, read blog posts, articles, watched documentaries, was treated to the most cutting edge UIs online today. And the main thing that jumped out to me was a strong eagerness to thank the new kids for just basic outcomes of social evolution. Things like people being a bit less racist and homophobic than previous generations. To me, being more accepting than the generation who tried to ban the life of Brian for blasphemy doesn't exactly sound like the kind of thing that requires extraterrestrial influence to achieve. The New Kids is a New Age conception. For those of you who don't know, New Age refers to a loose collection of spiritual, philosophical, psychological, and religious beliefs that came to prominence in America in the 70s. The formations and roots of New Age beliefs are vast and complex, but it grew in no small part due to middle-class suburbanites looking for meaning in a world which they saw to be going down a bad path, away from connectedness with each other, ancient knowledge and nature. This general mood gave rise to a plethora of new philosophies, religious movements, and psychological practices rooted in humanism and idealism. I think there's lots of interesting things to say about this period of history and the assumptions and practices it gave rise to. I'd quite like to do some more videos on that, and if you would like to see that kind of thing, then let me know in the comments. Many beliefs that grew from the New Age share strong similarities with earlier radical movements such as New Thought and Christian Science in the early 19th century. This was a reimagining of Christian metaphysics with a focus on each individual having the ability to not only be at one with God, but to be able to harness the power of prayer to heal illness. Coming from a stance of radical idealism, mind over matter, it was thought that illness was an illusion, which can be prayed away with enough effort. Christian Science has fallen into disrepute in recent years, and I hope that has something to do with the fact that Christian scientists have been prosecuted for the deaths of over 50 children who died of easily treatable illnesses. Anti-medicalism, vaccine hesitancy, the belief in the seemingly never-ending power of positive thinking, skepticism of not only Big Pharma, but of scientific consensus in general. These are all things that you will find should you hang around New Age circles for more than 5 minutes. And while people who hold these beliefs tend to be well-meaning, the harm done when things go wrong can be catastrophic.
Do you think there are more people out there like you that we don't know about?
I know there are. We can kind of sense each other. But like so many of my friends are like me. And of course, some of them have been labelled with like ADHD or autism or other labels like that. They're all amazing. I don't get it. I don't get why we need to be labelling kids like that.
Or aren't indigo and crystal labels?
So what even is an indigo or a crystal child? Am I one? Are you one? Probably, yeah. The list of traits associated with indigo, crystal, rainbow, opal star kids is as long as you like. Seriously. There's no wonder really that one of the main criticisms levied at this idea is that the list of traits is just so vague and general as to just end up having the Barnum effect, which is when universal descriptions are taken to have a deeply personal meaning. This is typically how horoscopes and fortune telling works. You are intrigued by mystery. You have a deep inner world. You have a strong sense of self-determination. These are all things I've read as traits of indigo and crystal children, and like, who isn't intrigued by mystery? Surely intriguing is like an inherent part of a mystery, otherwise we'd just call it a thing people don't know. Okay, so let's find out if you're all indigo children. Traits include high IQ, empathetic, curious and strong-willed nature, perceived by others as being strange or unusual, perceived by themselves as being different.
A strong desire to have their needs met, seems to show highly intuitive or psychic ability, passionately creative and usually very talented, very strong sense of and adherence to ethics, highly sensitive, high energy frequency, resistance to authoritarian and arbitrary rules.
The point of this video isn't to go, hey, that's autism and ADHD, you're talking about autism and ADHD, because they know that. Nobody who believes in the new kids would deny that when we talk about kids with ADHD and autism, and they're talking about indigo and crystal children, that we're talking about the same people. So pointing out that that is the case would hardly be interesting. Although there is quite a funny scene in the Vice documentary on indigo children, where the dude asks the brother of an indigo girl what he thinks about his sister being sent here to save humanity. And he's like, yeah, I think it's going to be quite hard to save the world when she keeps losing her keys and can't even make it through her shopping list. The mum was just like... Most of the new kids on the documentaries I watched had some experience of either being offered assessment for neurodivergency or had been diagnosed and offered medication or treatment. I saw one person who had relabeled ADHD from meaning attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder to meaning attention dialed into a higher dimension. Smoothly done. And many others claim that minimally or non-speaking autistic people are actually just telepathic. So that they don't speak because they don't need to. Because they can just... telepathy. Autistic kids being labelled as psychic by the adults in their lives is this whole thing. Before I talk more about this, before this turns into just a really strong criticism, I would like to say that a lot of what believers in the new kids say is just kinda nice. It's acceptance dialed up to 11. Most completely reject behaviourist approaches to neurodiversity and would look at ABA in horror. If you believe that your child was made that way on purpose to save humanity, then you're going to nurture the hell out of them. I mean, to not do so would be a smite against the universe its very self. Just quickly, before I get on to why we probably shouldn't literally alienate children, if you watch some of the older documentaries on Indigo Children, you will notice a pattern. From watching older documentaries on Indigo Children, you would be forgiven for thinking that every single new kid is white, wealthy, usually blonde and from California. The kids featured are usually homeschooled or sent to the bestest academies to hone their humanity-saving skills, and those who are homeschooled tend to be allowed to spend most of their time on their passions. The overwhelming whiteness of the new kids has diminished in recent years thanks to the internet. Now anyone can find out if they're an indigo, crystal, rainbow or star. However, the class divide remains. Not everyone who identifies as a new kid can attend the bestest Montessori schools or spend all day honing their special interests. A lack of time to pursue one's projects sucks for everyone, but imagine if you're told that your projects are the thing that are going to save the world, and then you end up working some rubbish job for a pittance. The emotional and psychological fallout of labelling kids gifted at school is only just becoming clear, but suffice to say, it's messy. But far worse than the psychological and social harm done by such high expectations, if children are held up by adults as having psychic or prophetic abilities, then that leaves them open to a great deal of exploitation. Parents, too, are the target of a whole industry designed to help new kids fulfill their ethereal potential with very expensive workshops, seminars and retreats. And unfortunately, exploitation isn't the worst of it. For while in California, these psychic skills may seem cool and quirky, elsewhere they might be something to fear, a curse to get rid of. For every child that is held up by religious leaders for being able to communicate with angels, there may be another one saying it's devils. While researching this, I was struck by how optimistic white liberals were pre-financial crisis. There does seem to be this very strong and sure assumption that the kind of lifestyle which was available to middle-class Americans would be available to all the world's people just any day now. This cocktail of optimism, idealism and individualism makes for some conclusions which, although kind-hearted, are not it, chieftain. The same line of thinking that says that calling disabled people specially abled while never doing anything to change the material conditions but still expecting that that will somehow ease suffering, well, that also might say that not only accepting neurodivergent people as just people who exist and deserve equality and rights and things, but kind of skipping that part and jumping straight to holding them up as better, that would be a good thing. And no. Imagine if all you want to do is make jam or get really good at Tetris or become Ben Affleck's biographer. Is that supposed to be seen as some divine plan too? I googled the kids featured in the documentaries I watched. None of them have really done anything transformative with their divine skills. I can't help but wonder how they feel about that. I kind of want to tell them it's okay. All children deserve freedom and support to pursue their passions. We should not need to believe that some kids are more deserving than others. The schooling system and then the economy we enter into afterwards are hardly conducive to genius in most cases. And the sooner we accept this, the sooner we might focus on creating the conditions that do allow for this freedom. Focusing on special individuals will inevitably lead to the material conditions which affect everyone going ignored. And a large draw for the new kids has been the pathologizing and negative way we talk about neurodivergent people. Of course, it's better to think that you're magic and not of this world than a disordered mess of a half person with a broken brain. But by accepting neurodiversity as just a thing that exists, just a natural and inevitable aspect of the variety of human neurology, and if treatments can be thought of as tools rather than necessities, then we can better support all children, not just the ones who have been identified as remarkable.
And everything you've said today is true.
Yes, of course. I did always feel different. It was hard for me to fit in and always has been. And I did sense things others couldn't. I'm hypersensitive to taste, touch, light, sound, smell, but I'm also hyposensitive to my own interoception and proprioception. I have what are known as level 4 closed eye hallucinations, which is thought to be the brain creating imagery when there's no external data for it. So it only happens when my eyes are closed, and they can be incredible. I also have a very vivid visual imagination. You know that scale of apples? Well, I'm a 1. So it's incredibly easy for me to not only conjure up some environment, but to also imagine how it feels to be in it. Should really be a fiction writer. Just had a life calling epiphany. Where was I? As a kid, I read up on astral projection, and I honestly nailed it every time I tried it. And I often experience my thoughts as a internal dialogue, and sometimes this dialogue takes on the voice of somebody I know. Can genuinely feel like messages from the beyond at times. Sometimes an incoming call can give me a funny tinnitus, but that doesn't happen so much anymore that everything's done online. Adults tend to underestimate children, particularly children of an atypical development. They tend not to realise how much kids pick up on. And so I did know things that I hadn't been told, because despite me being quiet and introverted, I watched, I listened, and I understood. I could spot patterns, which allowed me to predict things. And quite frankly, I eavesdropped and snooped a lot. Kind of felt like I had to understand my environment. That day that my mum walked in to tell me that she was pregnant, I knew because she was back early from a medical procedure, meaning that she had not had it, and one of the main reasons for her to not have had said medical procedure was that she was pregnant. I just worked it out quickly, and I was right, and I didn't even realise that's what I had done until later, and it did feel spooky at the time. Energy fields around things. I get very strong afterburn images, and contrast tends to, I can't even describe it. It's when there's this contrasting colours or shapes or something. Do you know, like when a image goes a bit out of focus and there's just like a line around everything? It's a bit like that. One of my main special interests throughout my life has been the occult, the paranormal, witchcraft. I'd spend hours reading about it. All I wanted for my birthday and Christmas was books about the paranormal. I didn't care what. Crop circles, spontaneous human combustion, urban legends, vampires, werewolves, Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, witches, anything that promised more mystery than the world I was experiencing in my immediate vicinity. I dreamed of being a witch. I watched anything that had witches in it. I spent all my pocket money on different coloured candles so I could do spells at the next full moon in my garden. I made my family take me to the Witchcraft Museum in Devon and I learned everything I could about the subject. So there's no wonder that being accused of witchcraft would pop up as a past life memory. If somebody had told me that I was a crystal or an indigo child, I would have swallowed that down in a heartbeat. I would have bitten their hand off. I don't judge anyone who identifies with this stuff as a way to feel more powerful in an unjust and, for neurodivergent people, typically traumatizing world. But to parents, I would say, your neurodivergent child is special no matter what. Nurture them as you would if they were seeds of the stars, because they are, as all people are. But they will struggle, and so maybe don't rest the task of fixing the world on their little shoulders. Celebrate them, because all children deserve to be celebrated equally. Just a few things I forgot to mention. It's quite common for autistic people to overthink, to imagine all the possible consequences of something, and this can mean that sometimes you seem to predict things. My seeing lights and shadows, I think that is just afterburn and floaters and things like that. And yeah, the Reiki people did say that because they'll say "oh" to get you back in the door. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please consider joining these actual celestial beings on my Patreon. I can only do this thanks to them, and in return I offer perks. Like, subscribe and follow me on things, and I will see you next time.